It's a couple of minutes early, but I think I might as well start because there's lots of questions here. Question number one, I would like to know what's this feeling? Felt like sitting on a floating carpet and the surroundings so quiet and peaceful, like everything stayed still. Sounds very nice. Now the thing to do is please repeat that and give me more instructions. It could be anything. Sitting on a floating carpet. It'd be great if you could sit on floating carpets. Then you would not need to buy an airline ticket to go to Australia or to Mexico. Imagine that you go to Mexico on a floating carpet. What would the immigration say? I don't know. But it was surroundings so quiet and peaceful, like everything stands still. That sounds very good. Usually, instead of trying to find out what's happening by what's there, see if you could investigate what is missing in these experiences. For example, if it's a very deep meditation, it's very clear that what is missing is sounds from outside. People try to be quiet in here, but of course there will always be some sound, some noise. Somebody coughs or they bang a door or something happens. So it should be pretty easy to know whether you're hearing sounds. Can you feel your body floating on like a carpet, a floating carpet? That's usually could be interpreted, you can't feel your body at all. Quiet and peaceful, great. So see what's missing, see how long that stays for. And when you are coming out of these meditations, that's the best time to think, what was that? And the other thing to look out for is when you come out of a deep meditation, how do you feel? By saying, how do you feel? I mean, how happy are you? How energized? How clear are you from the 5 hindrances? And that's an important thing to notice because you kind of know what wanting is and what the ill will is in the first 2 hindrances. And you kind of know what sloth and torpor is and what restlessness is. But do you really know what doubt is? It's a weird thing when you do get some nice meditations and you do stuff like recording early life memories or previous life memories. It was strange that if you do have those experiences, real experiences after deep meditation, that you don't doubt them at all. It was weird that you know they are real. You know that actually happened. You're not making anything up. Because that hindrance of doubt is totally vanished. So what you actually see, what you remember even is totally 100% correct. And sometimes that people have some wonderful experiences when they mess around doing like early life memories or past life memories. One of the ladies, she was from Malaysia some years, well, she's still alive. But anyway, she was trying these meditation techniques. She got very, very still. She just asked herself, what is her earliest memory? And if it's going to work, it works almost immediately. You don't have to wait for very long. And what she saw was herself as a young baby, breastfeeding on her mother's womb. I'm sorry, not womb, on her mother's breast. And then she looked up at her mother, and the lady who was giving her breast milk to this young baby was certainly not her mum. So after she came out of the meditation, she asked me, what's going on there? A very clear image, just like I was back there again, of me at my breastfeeding, Well, I looked at that person, it was not my mother. And I said, well, it does happen sometimes that, people actually get adopted for one reason or another. Your biological mother can't look after you or something happens. So I told her that next time when you get home and you see your your mother, the one who you think is your mum, just but ask her kindly. And so she did that. So when she saw her mother, she was her mum. Why do you ask such a question? And then she explained what had happened. In her meditation, she asked what's her earliest memory, and she had this memory of her breastfeeding, and the person she was breastfeeding from was not her mum. So it wasn't you, didn't look anything like you. And the mother, instead of being upset, was actually quite fascinated. She said, what did that woman look like? And this meditator gave a very good description of this person breastfeeding her. Because what happens in meditation, because the mindfulness is strong and the no doubt at all, you can remember these things really accurately. And her mother was just so amazed. She said, first of all, I am your biological mother. I gave birth to you, but we came from a good family, so I hired a wet nurse for you. And that's an amazing description of the nurse which we hired to feed you when you were a little baby. How you can remember that is amazing, but it was true. So she remembered her wet nurse, and it totally surprised her that she could do something like that. So that's what happens. You don't have any doubt. It was some person who was doing something for her at such an early age. Now you have some idea of what the hindrance of doubt actually is, or what it feels like when that hindrance of doubt has gone. But the other two qualities which I was mentioning, and I will emphasize now, was the qualities of no negativity, arity, and just no arity and tandi. Tandi is weariness. You just can't be upset at all. You've got lots and lots of joy, and you've got energy as well. I don't know how you feel when you get into your 50s and 60s and 70s, but you know that sometimes you do feel weary. Your energy levels are not quite the same as when you're young. Those stairs which you climb up will get higher and higher every year. But if you have a very good meditation, weird, but you don't have tiredness. The mind empowers the body, which is a very delightful thing to have. You really value that little bit of extra energy no matter what you're doing. So those are some of the things which happen after you've had a good meditation. So don't just look at what was happening then, what was missing, but how do you feel after? If you are tired afterwards, it wasn't a deep meditation. Yeah, I suppose I better do it again. But no, if it's a good meditation, you're full of joy and happiness. That's one of the signs. At your Ajahn, my whole body slowly, gradually calms down when I start chanting Namo Tassa. My body relaxes and I don't feel any ache and begin to enjoy the comfort of it. Why? It could be that when you're chanting Namo Tassa, it inspires you. Never underestimate the power of inspiration. Sometimes I recall listening to amazing Dhamma talks by someone like an Ajahn, and you don't feel any tiredness at all. In fact, afterwards, you just want to go and sit and make your mind peaceful and quiet, and it's easy to do so. You get some beautiful energy coming up. That could be what's happening. But it does remind me of another story, and this was of a Buddhist nun. I don't know if you've met her, I better not say her name, but anyway, before she was a nun, she was trekking in the foothills of the Himalayas with her boyfriend, and they saw a nice cave, and so that she decided to just rest a little while and meditate in the front of the cave, and the boyfriend meditated just above the cave on a rock. That's a bad thing to do in Himalaya mountains, because in the Himalaya mountains, many of those caves are the homes of bears. I'm not talking about teddy bears. And sure enough, a bear had gone out to get something to eat and came back and saw her in front of the cave and charged at her and started to bite her head. And to this day, she's a nun now. That's how we can see the scars around her head. The bear took her whole head in its jaws and started to crunch the skull. The boyfriend just sat there. Honestly, boyfriends are not helpful. But then she didn't know what to do, and she started chanting. And as soon as she started chanting, the bear just opened its jaws and ran off. The power of Buddhist chants can be very, very strong. But anyway, we asked her, how did it feel, with a bear just sinking its teeth into your skull? And she said she didn't notice any pain at all. But what she said was very unendurable was the bear's bad breath. Bears do not brush their teeth. And when your head is halfway in the bear's mouth, it should almost pass out. But fortunately, once the bear ran off, then the boyfriend appeared and carried her down to the nearest medical outpost. So, she got sort of cleaned up and she survived okay. But the other interesting part of this story, from that time on, she had this headache. And she tried to find what was causing this headache. And eventually, when she went back to UK, that somebody did a CAT scan on her head. And that's when they found the cause of this headache. There was a little tree growing in her brain. Only a tiny one. What had happened when the bear had bit onto her head, it had a little seed in one of the teeth, and that got implanted into her brain. And I don't know how the tree could survive, but the little tree had germinated, was growing in her brain. So they took the tree out. It was only a tiny tree sapling, but then that was the end of her headaches. So always be careful if you do get bitten by a bear on your head. You may have a forest starting in your brain. But anyway, that's with chanting. Chanting can be very powerful. Dear Ajahn, I am stuck. Please help. Body is still, but the mind likes entertaining thoughts. It sees the breath, but not interested. How? If that's what your mind is doing, it likes entertaining thoughts, after a while, those entertaining thoughts get really boring. How many entertaining thoughts can you have? Can you beat your record? You know, one of the monks with Ajahn Chah, you know, he eventually did disrobe, but before he disrobed, he was very, very skillful in many areas, but he also had all these thoughts in his mind, what we call unmonkish thoughts. So when he asked Ajahn Chah for advice, Ajahn Chah said, it's easy to cure that. All you need to do is the next time there is like a full moon day, volunteer to give the Dhamma talk and tell all the villagers who've been feeding you for such a long time what you're really thinking about when you're meditating. He didn't have the guts to do that. All those embarrassing thoughts. But after a while, if you look properly, those so-called entertaining thoughts, all it really is just like you go home and you've got nothing to do, and you just go like surfing what's on the TV, what's on this channel, that channel. Or you go into the refrigerator to see, you know, what there is to eat. And I've seen that so many times that people do that, and the refrigerator is full of stuff, and they open it so there's nothing to eat. There's these channels now. I don't know how many channels have they got. Is it 30 or 40 channels when you have a TV? And they go through them all, there's nothing on. In other words, we are just bored. We just want to see different things and changing things. Instead, after a while, you find there's much more happiness, not in entertaining thoughts which come and go so fast, but in peaceful thoughts. If you were in Jhanagrove and you wrote this, I would tell you, please go and have a walk in the forest. I say walk in the forest because everything in the forest moves slowly. Entertaining thoughts, they move fast. And because of that, you walk in the forest and you enjoy it much more. And also it slows you down, it pacifies you. And after having a walk in the forest, then you can go and sit down. It's easy to be peaceful. But anyway, the body is still, but the mind likes entertaining thoughts. Do the sweeping the body. Do the, again, some chanting is obviously good. Obviously, if you're in here, you have to do the silent chanting. That's Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dhammang Saranang Gacchami. Or do something which is reminding you of a good Dhamma talk, something which inspires you, until you can start to enjoy the beauty of peace. Honestly, the silence of your mind is always far more entertaining than any concoction of thoughts. So, shh, be silent. There's one of those poems which I wrote in the beginning of opening the door of your heart book. Grant yourself a moment of peace, and you will realize how foolishly you've scurried about. Give yourself a gift of peace. And if you just even think peace and value it, then you will think, why do I need to entertain myself with all these silly thoughts that get me nowhere? But peace is healthier and also much closer to good and deep insight. So you can try a few things like that. Also that you may be a bit restless at the beginning of the retreat, and it's coming to the end of the beginning of the retreat. And after a while, you need to get into some nice peaceful meditations. Not every meditation can be peaceful. You have some difficult ones, But at least you should have one or two every day, which are nice and calm. So why can't you have good meditations every time? You know the answer to that? It was the simile of the migrant. This migrant came to Australia. He was a doctor in his home country, but when he arrived in Australia, he found that his qualifications were not recognized. I don't know if they do that in Malaysia, but Australia is terrible with things like that. One of our members, he was a psychiatrist, and he said this other psychiatrist, they invited him in to Australia because he was a big shot psychiatrist, very well known, and he'd even written many books on psychiatry. So they invited him into Australia, and when he came, the immigration official said, yeah, you can visit, but you can't practice as a psychiatrist because your qualifications aren't recognized in Australia. He said, well, what do I have to do to get my qualifications recognized? He said, do a simple test on these two books, and if you pass, then we can actually say that you're qualified. And he said, that first book, whose name is on that? That's me. He said, he had to do an exam on the book which he wrote in order to get permission to practice in Australia. But anyway, this doctor, he came from a poor country, but he's a good doctor. So he had to get another job. And the first job he got was on a building site, like many migrants do. And on the building site, he worked very hard. But after the first day on the building site, when he went home, his wife asked, how much did you earn today, darling? He said, nothing. They never paid me a cent. He worked on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The same thing happened. They never paid him. And on Thursday evening, he was very angry. These Australians, they just exploit migrants. 4 days I've been working hard. I haven't been paid at all. And the next day, he had nothing else to do, so he went to work. He didn't work hard at all on the Friday. But on the Friday, the boss gave him a big pay packet. And when he went home, he said, I finally discovered how things work in Australia. From now on, I'm only going to go to work on Fridays. You get paid on Friday for all the work you've done Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Same with some of your meditations. Every now and again, you get a very deep, beautiful, peaceful meditation. It's not because what you've just done in the last 45 minutes or an hour. It's the paycheck for all the other meditations you've done, which have led up to that. That's how it works. Eventually, it comes good. Can you please explain right view and how important it is to meditation? My goodness, that's a big question. The right view is honestly, you cannot explain the whole of right view because that's huge. If you understand right view, that means you're a stream there. So the major part of right view, which is going to help you as a meditator, is knowing you don't own anything. I kind of like that explanation. If there's no me, there's no mine. That's one of the things which I was, when the Buddha said that, it was something which really quite meant a lot to me. Instead of philosophizing about, who you are or who you are not, he said, when there's something belonging to you, possessions, then you can trace that back to see a sense of self. When you own nothing, there's no you. You almost can define yourself by what you own. And I think it was this morning when I gave that simile of being a visitor, not an owner. I found that so helpful. Because sometimes, you go to many different places, even I have a lovely time, meditating at the BGF. I've been in that room so many times now. I know it so well. It knows me so well. When I go there, I don't own anything. So I can sit there. I don't have to clean up afterwards. Somebody else will clean up, I hope. You just sit there. They wash all the mats and the bedclothes and whatever. So it's like just being in a nice free space where I don't anything at all. I don't need to think how I can improve things because I don't own it. You see how less thinking there is, how less responsibility. The trouble with people these days, they're way too responsible. We always think we should do stuff too much. This is a retreat center. You don't own this place. So just enjoy it. I spent a lot of time building jhana growth, as many of you know. So please, you don't need to improve it when you get there. I built it. So if you think you can improve it, that's quite offensive. I'm only joking. But it means you can go there and just relax to the max. And you don't own things. You're free. So that's a nice view because that helps with meditation. How Ajahn used to explain that, he said, don't ever try to meditate to get something, to attain something. Meditate to see how much you can abandon, how much you can let go of, how much you can be free. It's the same with, I don't know how many people keep talking about their meditation. They come into the interviews, my meditation is not so good. My meditation is wonderful. What are you talking about? It's not your meditation. You don't own it. My mind, my body. Is it really your body? Quite often I think of this body and no, I can't really claim it. If it is fat, honestly, it's not my fault. It's your fault. You're the ones who feed me. And I often said that to people over in Perth. My stomach belongs to you. You decide what goes into it. I kind of like that idea that I don't own my body. So you try and keep it healthy, but then if it gets sick, it's not my problem, it's your problem. Fix it. So those types of right view means you don't get afraid, you don't worry about stuff, and it makes life much more peaceful and happy. Don't even own Bodhinyana Monastery. That's always very, very clear. I'm not quite sure what's going on there at the moment. The monks there may have all converted to being Christians and made it into a Christian monastery, and I'm not allowed back in when I get back. I don't know. Would you recommend we set intentions before meditating? If yes, could you please suggest practical intentions a beginner meditator can adopt? Yeah, the best intention is, I will have no intentions. Make that intention. In other words, intention, I think you mean like goals. How about no goals at all? You're sitting here, you're not trying to get somewhere, but you're being here. That's like some years ago when I was just walking through our city centre. I had a bunch of papers in my hand because I needed to do some business there. And they asked me, said, Ajahn Brahm, how are you going? Just like being polite. And I said the usual response, I'm getting there. And he very sharply responded, getting where, Ajahn Brahm? I realized he called me out. I said, I know where I'm going. There are 3 crematoriums in Perth. That's where I'm going. I'm kidding myself by working too hard, by trying to get somewhere, trying to go somewhere. Where are you going? Each one of you. Yeah, you may go to Mexico, you may go to France, or you may go here and there, but that's where you end up. in a box, in an oven. So how are you going? Never say I'm getting there. Say I'm being here. That's a much better word. I'm being here. So much so that whenever I do travel, and you go to airports like KLIA, or very recently going to cities like London, or go to other places where there's lots of people. Say in London, it's very rare to see a human being. Even in KLIA, I hardly saw a human being in that airport. All I ever saw were human goings. I didn't see any human beings. They were always looking ahead, rushing to get another aircraft, rushing to get a taxi, rushing to go somewhere. How many people are actually human beings? And how many of us are going on some errand, doing something, getting rid of something? So it's nice when you are here on a retreat. See if you can be a human being rather than a human going to jhanas or going to enlightenment or something. It's much more interesting being here. So the intentions before meditating, I would actually sit down. If there was any intention at all, it's almost a non-intention. And of course that is relax to the max. Each one of you are very good at doing things, achieving things, going places. How many of you can relax? That's what meditation is, learning how to relax. How can we ensure our meditation gives us clarity and not delusion? Is there any sanity check we can do post-meditation? Thank you, Ajahn Brahm. You know, these, the COVID tests, wouldn't it be wonderful to have, instead of a rat test, some jhana test, you just put a stick up your nose, twist it around and see what deep meditation you had. You didn't have a deep meditation. You know, the clarity and not delusion, that's very much up to you to know. And I, again, was inspired when I saw how the Buddha taught people like Mahapajapati, you know, his foster mum, or how he taught Upali, you know, his former barber. He told them, just go into the forest and whatever practice leads to peace, leads to this sense, that's upasana, leads to the sense of renunciation, leads to things fading away and disappearing, leads to even this mental joy. Always know that those are the teachings of the Buddha. That's the Dhamma. Don't be so specific. But if you come here and you know you're getting more peaceful, you're getting more joyful, you feel clear, you can see more beauty in things like the wood floor. The food tastes more delicious. That's the thing I thought you should be interested in. I don't know about you, but so often people say at the end of a retreat, and thank you for the cooks. We never expected such delicious food. How's the food here? Is it delicious? If it is, then well done, your meditation is going well. Because the first retreat which I went to, as I said, it was in boarding houses in Cambridge. And at that time, I think everybody knew that the standard of food in UK was way down the bottom. France had delicious food, but the English had terrible food. And the worst cooks in the whole country, everybody agreed, were those employed to cook for poor students in boarding houses. And it usually was like a meat and two veg. And the veggies, they were just boiled and steamed until there was no flavor left in them. And honestly, when we was told we we're going to have vegetarian food, I thought, oh my goodness, it's going to be no taste at all. And I really thought of getting some sandwiches. I don't know if you've done that in your bags when you checked in. You got a few little things in there in case you get hungry. I know they do that in the UK retreats and Australian retreats. In Malaysia, you're more well behaved. No need to confess. But the Singaporean retreats, they were the worst. You know that. Because what happens, you see, after the evening meetings, they go out to the hawker stalls. That's not a suggestion. Please don't do that. Sometimes you wonder why people are so sleepy in the morning meditation. But anyhow, so how to do this? If you find you don't really need to go out, you're happy with just having a couple of meals. But for us, or rather that time when I went on this retreat with boarding house food, I was surprised. The food tasted delicious, and it was really exceptionally delicious. And of course, the reason it was tasty was the same reason that clump of bamboo looked beautiful. It was just the ordinary, boring, tasteless, boiled to death food we normally had in boarding houses. But because I was aware, any last vestige of taste or flavor, the last remnant of flavor which was left after all that boiling, you could taste. It was a sign that the meditation was going well. So if you want to ensure your meditation gives us clarity and not delusion, how does the food taste? A simple test like that. And if it's more delicious than you could ever expect, then your meditation is going well. Is there a specific meditation practice that helps us overcome greed or hatred or delusion? Of course there is, the one which we teach here. That's the only way to overcome the three defilements, greed, hatred, and delusion. Just make the mind peaceful. Make it still, give it energy. Once it is energized, you find you don't need to seek for pleasure in the five senses. That greed has disappeared. When you look at having lots and lots of stuff, it's quite stupid. That story of the lady who won the English lottery a few years ago, I think it was about 42 million pounds sterling. That's after tax. So just a windfall of 42 million pounds. So what she did, she always wanted to buy a big house in the countryside somewhere. So that's what she did. And 1 year later, she sold that house at a loss and bought a small house. I think it wasn't a separated house, it was just like in a terrace, a block of terraces. And they asked, why? Why you had a big mansion, you want to sell that and buy a small house? And she said, because in the big house, it was splitting up her family. She never saw her husband. He was in one wing of the house. Her daughter was in another level of the house. Somebody else was in the extension to the house. So they had each child had so many rooms. They never saw one another. And the whole family was just breaking apart. I don't know about you, but I grew up in a very small apartment. In fact, well, no, maybe that's an exaggeration. The apartment was like a council flat in London where I grew up with my mum, my dad, and my brother, was only a little bit bigger than the room that I'm in right now. So really, really small, surprisingly small. So you had to share a room with your brother. And sometimes he would snore. I'm sure I snored. We had to learn how to get on together because there was no choice. He eventually became a banker, Barclays Bank. I became a monk. He had lots of money. I had no money. But of course, if you've seen us together, we still love each other because we had to. We grew up like that in a small house. And to this day, I encourage people, even if you can afford a big house, if you want a family, you want that family to live together, love each other, and have harmony, please have a small house. And please have it so your children can't have their own room. They have to share. They learn, the art of forgiveness and kindness and love, because that's the only way to survive. My mum and dad would argue, like everybody does. That's what I learned, seeing my mum and dad argue. And sometimes they wouldn't talk to each other for a couple of hours. But when that happened, I looked forward to it because I knew it'd only be a matter of minutes and they'd reconcile and ask forgiveness of one another. And that was such a beautiful thing for a kid to see. The mum and dad arguing, but then asking forgiveness of one another and hugging and reconciling again. That taught me a lot about human nature. Sometimes if you have to forgive, it's a beautiful thing to do. So anyway, what question was that? That's how to overcome greed and hatred. My goodness, I don't know why people get into hatred. They don't really know other human beings. One thing which I learned by going to into prisons, some of the people in prison had done terrible things. They were very dangerous. But some of those people in the prison, when you found out why they were so violent and full of hatred, it was easy to understand them and forgive them. One of these gentlemen, I call him a gentleman, he came to see me in one of these prisons. He wanted an appointment with me. So, what happened? And you took one look at him first of all. And this was a really dangerous guy, really big, incredibly strong, and full of scars all over him. And he spoke with a Northern Irish accent. He was born in Belfast, which was a very violent city. And he said that he was first stabbed when he was about 6 years old in the school playground. The bully in the school asked for his money for dinner, his dinner money. And he said, I haven't got any. And the bully took out a knife and stabbed this kid in the arm. He never asked twice. And so this kid, only 6 years of age, ran out of the school. His dad, unemployed, lived close by. Dad, I've been stabbed. There was blood all over his shirt. And his dad took him into the kitchen, not to dress the wound, but to open another drawer and take out a kitchen knife, give it to the kid and say, take this and go and stab the boy back. He said that's how he was brought up. And he said he'd been in so much violence, he only survived because he was strong, big, tough. And he told me that he had murdered quite a few people. But now he was in an Australian jail. It was our Carnet prison farm. And on that prison farm, his job was actually to be the head of the slaughterhouse, where they raised cows and pigs and sheep. They were training these prisoners to be able to have a job when they left the prison. And that was the job they were trying to give them. It was a crazy system that they were teaching them to be more violent. And the most violent job of the head slaughterer, he said he had to fight for that. But that's what his job was. And all the time, please excuse me, he kept on interrupting. He said, this is God's own swearing truth. And he said they were needing to slaughter cows. And as the cows were coming in, he said they always make a noise. They know they're going to be killed. And there's this very big stainless steel railings, and they have to channel these cows through the railings until they come one by one. And he had an electric gun, one first shot to stun, the second one to kill. He'd been doing this for months. And he said that this one cow came in, unlike any other. He said it's God's own effing truth. It had its head down, and it came in quietly and voluntarily. It didn't need to be pushed. And when it positioned itself in the execution place, it lifted up its head and looked to the prisoner in the eyes, stared at him. He said the prisoner, the executioner, never seen anything like this in his life. And he just could not pull the trigger. And as he was watching the eyes of a cow, I think you've seen cows before, their eyes are huge. He saw on the lower lid of one of the eyes, there was water welling up. The amount of water on the eyelid got more and more and more until it dribbled over and ran down the cow's cheek. He said that cow was crying. And again, he couldn't do anything. He just noticed the same happened on the second eye. Water welled up until the eyelid couldn't hold it anymore and dribbled down the cow's cheek. And at that, this prisoner threw down the gun and said, that cow ain't dying. And that's where he saw the problem of violence. When he came to me, this big, violent guy said, I'm a vegetarian now. I'm not going to hurt anybody. That was another story of the cow that cried, a true story which happened in the prison farm close to Bodhinyana Monastery. And that book, Opening the Door of Your Heart, was translated into many languages. One of the languages being German, Deutsch. And they liked that story so much, they gave it the title, instead of Opening the Door of Your Heart, they gave it the title of the Kuh der Weinte, which is Deutsch, German for the cow that cried. True story. Why are you violent? So after a while, when we practice our meditation, our kindness, compassion, wisdom, they grow all together. It's not a particular meditation which does this. They all work together until greed, hatred, and delusion all get weaker and weaker until they disappear. Meditation comes in many forms: sitting, walking, in the toilet, or sports, i.e. cycling, tennis, etc. Do active, sporty type of meditation bring different outcomes? Yes. You can't be as still and peaceful and allow your senses to disappear. I suppose in the sports of boxing, your senses can disappear if you get knocked out. But in the other types of sport and meditation, like tennis or something, you know that sometimes that when we play sport, a lot of time is too much competition involved in the sport. Many years ago, when I first went to Australia, I really did feel that we needed to make more connection with the other religions around in Australia. So I really thought we should have a football team, a soccer team, so Bodhinyana Monastery could play St. George's Cathedral or something in a soccer match. Only for fun, just in order to, you know, to get some understanding and some friendship. But then I thought, if a Buddhist monastery or monks played sport, it would have to be according to Buddhist principles. If the other team wanted the ball, we'd have to let go. We couldn't score a goal because that would upset the other side. That's a very cool thing to do. We could score own goals. And now that kind of makes you understand why Malaysia never gets into the World Cup. Too many Buddhists. Or Thailand. They never get into the World Cup. Sri Lanka, they're good at cricket. You know why they're good at cricket? Because with the meditation, you can get that ball to turn that way. Or take the wicket. So the best type of meditation is when you let go of the five senses, and all those sports are to do with the five senses. And all those sports also are about winning. And winning creates a strong sense of ego, a strong sense of self. And a point of meditation is a path to lead to lessening your ego, to letting go of the sense of self. That is why this is a true story. The last game of football which I ever played when I was at college, only 9 of the opposition turned up. 11 of my team turned up. And at half time, it was a silly game of football. We were about 6 or 7 ahead at half time. And so I asked my captain, so can I pray for the other side in the second half to make a game of it? I just wanted to have the fun of a game instead of just one-sided winning. He said no. And then I resigned. I didn't want to play football ever again. If winning meant so much and just the game was nothing at all, why play football? So that's the last game of football I ever played. Oops. Dear Ajahn Brahm, how to trust ourselves again, given that we experienced lots of disappointments in the past? Thanks. If you had a disappointment, learn from it. The more disappointments you have, the wiser you become. Isn't it? Do you want to be wise? Have more disappointments. Disappointment, you expected something. This was one of the definitions of suffering, which a fellow in Singapore, he said, I need to have some sort of Dhamma teaching, but I've only got 2 minutes. I've got to get a taxi to go to work. You know what Singapore is like. And so I said, okay, sort of suffering is expecting something from the world it can never give you. And I kind of like that definition. So you don't want to be disappointed? That's impossible. Do you think the Buddha was disappointed? His cousin, Devadatta, trying to kill him? Do you think he was disappointed? What do you reckon? You got quiet again. But life is never easy. So sometimes things happen which we would rather not happen. All the people in your family who have died so far, all the monks you have known who've died, Ajahn, the Chief Reverend, all these people, it'd be wonderful if they were still alive. But you get disappointed sometimes. That is our life. So the suffering is asking from life what it can never give you. You can't have the people you love and respect to be around you all the time. So if you experience disappointments, that is where wisdom comes from. And of course, you know my favorite simile of that. If you tread in a dog poo, what should you do? Bring it home, yes. So if you bring it home after this retreat is over and you bring some dog poo home with you, I think your partner will never let you come on a retreat ever again. But you explain it to the dog poo is the fertilizer. So the disappointments are where you learn. And if you had no disappointments at all, would you learn much about life? I mentioned this story to the monks before I left. I remember I had to give talks in Thai from about my third or fourth year as a monk, because I wanted to see Westerners, giving Dhamma talks. So I remember one talk which I gave to in a Thai monastery to Thai people, and it's a very popular talk because at the ending of the talk, you'd usually finish the talk by saying, "Ko mi kwam sukh kwam jalern," which in Thai means, "May you all have happiness and prosperity." And all the monks used to say that. So I thought, let's be different. And so I said to them, after giving my talk, I said to them all, "Ko mi kwam tuk kwam sum," which meant, may you all have lots of suffering and lots of decay. And the monks who were there, some very senior monks there, they started laughing. They said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, right on." Because I say, without the suffering and the lack of progress, how will you ever understand Dhamma? You have to have these problems in life to give the impetus to learn something. And look at those great people in the time of the Buddha. I always say a lot about her. Patachara lost her husband, two kids, and her two parents on the same day. Now, how would that feel if you lost even one of those close relations? The same day, two kids, husband, and two parents. She went crazy. So mad that she walked in to the Jeta Grove Monastery totally naked. One of the reasons I say this, especially to our committee members in Perth, yes, we're monks, but if a crazy woman comes here badly dressed, please let her in. You don't know why she was badly dressed. There was Patachara. She was not badly dressed. She was totally naked. And the Buddha saw her. Something must be happening. Let her in. One of the monks took off the robe and put it around her so she could be decent. And the Buddha taught her some Dhamma. She became a bhikkhuni. She became fully enlightened. One of the best teachers of that age. I say that because when I started reading the Therigatha, the verses of the enlightened nuns, there was none after none after none said they were struggling with their meditation for years until this great teacher came and they got enlightened within weeks. And that was Patachara. She had this incredible ability to teach so powerfully that people who were meditating for a long time never got anywhere until she came along. That's why sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And the reason was she had so much suffering, losing all her family in one day. And she pulled through it and she learned so much. In the way I say things, she had so much dog poo. She had a whole kennel full of dog poos. And that's why she became so wise, compassionate. So when things like that happen, disappointments, expectations, frustrated, if you know how to make use of that, you can get incredible wisdom and compassion. Do you agree? Okay. So if you go home and found, your partner's run off with your best friend, how would you feel? Yay! More dog poo. Dearest Ajahn Brahm, could you please consider giving us a guided meditation? Please. Okay, I will consider it. I won't do it, but I will consider it. And look, the next question. We'll prepare your favorite food every day. He, he, he. That's bribery. But look, if you do really want to guide, there will be a guided meditation at the very end of the retreat, which I always do. That's a metta meditation. But the problem with guided meditations is that if I give a guided meditation, it has to be to everybody, and some people are having a wonderful time by themselves. So what I would suggest you do is there's so many guided meditations online. If you really need one, just you got your iPhones, download it. And when you're sitting up here in the afternoon or whatever, just put the earbud in your ear and listen to a guided meditation while everybody else is silent. So that means that you can have a guided meditation and you can choose when you want it and it doesn't interfere with everybody else's practice. Does that make sense? Give that a go. Okay, now we're getting to the nitty-gritty of the Dhamma. Dear Ajahn, please share the story of the red strings incident in a Thailand hospital. You know that story? So, who's close to the lights? Can we have the lights dimmed, please? Can you do that? Dimming the lights? It's a ghost story. Here we go. This was actually a true story. They're not dimming the lights, put them up. Here we go. They're dimming now. Now, this is one of those true stories that in Seniority Hospital, which is one of the biggest hospitals in Bangkok, is the one which looked after the King of Thailand before he passed away. But anyway, there was a doctor on duty there overnight, and in the morning, having finished his night shift, he was in the lift going down to the car park to get into his car and go home. There was another woman in the lift with him, a nurse. So there was a witness to what happened. That elevator stopped on one of the floors halfway down. And when the doors of that lift opened, The doctor just froze in fear, but managed to get himself together to push the close button so the elevator doors could shut. And there was a patient outside trying to get in. And the nurse said to the doctor, "What are you doing that for? There was a patient wanted to get in the lift. You should let them get in the lift." And the doctor replied, "That was one of my patients. He died last night. He was a ghost. And didn't you see on his wrist?" And this was the custom in Thailand. If somebody died, they would tie a red string around their wrist to show that they were dead. They need to go to the mortuary. And that the nurse said, "Does that mean I can't go in the lift too? Because I've got a red string as well." And that's one of the reasons why it's quite good that our lift doesn't work. But that doctor just fainted when that happened. They found him on the floor of the elevator, unconscious. And when he came to, that's the story he told. And they checked it out. And that nurse had died on the way to hospital in a car crash in Bangkok. So it was true. He had a ghost on the outside and a ghost on the inside. That was really scary. But I don't know if you remember one of my other famous ghost stories of the coffin ghost. How many of you remember that one? Only a few over there. Not many. Okay. There was a gentleman went to the Buddhist temple one evening, and after the talk was finished, he wanted to go home, and he had a choice. He had the long way around, which was quite safe, or he could go the shortcut. But the shortcut was through the cemetery. And he thought, "I'm not afraid of ghosts. Why can't I just walk through the cemetery?" So he chose to take the shortcut through the cemetery. And even though there are street lights on most roads, the street lights or the lights in the cemetery are always much darker than on the streets. So they're almost all further apart. So even though he didn't believe in ghosts, by the time he got to the middle of the cemetery, at least he was halfway, nothing had happened. He was starting to get confident. It was only a short way to the end of the cemetery. But as he just got past the halfway mark, that's when maybe it was fear causing this delusion. He thought he could hear something following him. So automatically, without looking around, he started walking faster. And as he was walking faster, he became certain that something actually was following him, because he could kind of hear the sound of it. Bump, 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 coming behind him. And then he made a big mistake. He turned around to look, and what he saw almost made his heart freeze in terror. What was bumping behind him was a coffin, a vertical coffin. You could still see the dirt on it just falling off as it was bump, bump, bump behind him. He freaked out and he started running really fast. But no matter how fast he ran, bump, 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 the coffin was running after him, and it was actually catching up on him. Fortunately, he got out of the cemetery, and he thought the coffins aren't allowed to go on the main road, so he thought it was safe. But the coffin never knew that rule. He was running along the street, and the coffin was running after him. Bump, 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 bump. He was lucky that his house was very close by. So when he got to his house, he never opened the garden gate. He jumped over it because the coffin was really close. Bump, 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 bump. Once he was over the garden gate, he ran to the door. And he turned around and he saw that coffin was actually at the garden gate now, but the coffin couldn't actually jump over. He thought he was safe. But instead, the coffin, bump, really hard against the garden gate. Bump! And the garden gate started to give way. He was terrified. So he got the keys to his house and he tried to put it in the lock. He dropped the keys. Bump! And the coffin broke down the garden gate. He had no protection now. He picked up the first key he could, put it in the lock. He was so lucky it was the correct key. He turned the lock, opened the door, jumped inside, and banged the door shut. And the coffin, bump, 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 was going down the garden path. And when he turned around, you know that in front doors, people have these glass panels. He could see the coffin only a couple of inches away, but on the other side of the door. He thought he was safe. He was inside. Bump! As the coffin started to hit the front door, bump! Harder and harder. He realized he was in trouble because he could saw the hinges on the side of the door start to give way. He realized it was only a matter of time before that coffin broke down the front door of his own home. Thinking quickly, he ran up the stairs to the top story of the house. Because in there was a toilet, the only place which had a lock on it. But before he jumped into the toilet, he saw bang! As the coffin broke down the door. The coffin was inside his house now. He was up the top of the stairs. He saw the coffin look to the left. Saw the coffin look to the right. Then he saw the coffin look up. It spotted him up the stairs. So the coffin, bump, 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 started to climb the stairs. He jumped into the toilet, locked the door, but he could hear that coffin bump, 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 bump up the stairs until it was right outside the toilet door. Bump! As it tried to break down the toilet door. Bump! And if you could break down the garden gate and the front door, the toilet door could not protect this man at all. He knew he was done for. So one big bump, and the toilet door broke. And there he was in the toilet, the washroom, just facing this coffin, no other place to run. But fortunately, trying to protect himself, he reached for something to throw at the coffin. He had a bottle of medicine in that washroom. He threw it at the coffin. And the medicine bottle broke, and all this smelly brown medicine went all over the coffin. And the coffin never moved again. What he threw at the coffin was cough mixture. Cough mixture. It stops the coughing. That's true. I'm a pharmacist. Cough mixture stops the coughing. Okay. Oh my goodness. I've got somebody. Okay. Shall we have a break for 5 minutes, a toilet break, and then we can carry on with the questions afterwards? So we can have the lights on again. Thank you. But don't go in the lift. Okay. So if people are in the toilet, please leave the doors open so they can still hear the questions and the answers. Is that a good idea? Yeah. Oh, this is very good to somebody maybe in the toilet now. I had a hemorrhoid operation just 3 days before this retreat. I am on hospitalization leave during this period, hence I have the opportunity to be here. Wonderful. Though I brought a lot of suffering, I am thankful to the hemorrhoids for allowing me to gain more insight into your teaching. Question, may I know if it is fine if I use the earphone to listen to your talks while lying in bed? Because after a hard day's work, I'm usually exhausted. That's not a problem at all. Please, wherever you are comfortable, it's much better to listen to some good talks than not listen to anything at all. Does it amount to disrespect while listening to Dhamma in bed? No. So you have my full permission for that, even if you listen to it on the toilet, which is why I said keep the toilet doors open so you can actually hear me speak. That's not disrespectful. The most important thing is you can actually hear the Dhamma. That's most important. And again, with hemorrhoid operations, look, that's one of the important things that when you know how to relax and let go, you don't get hemorrhoids, do you? You're relaxing, you're letting go. Let go. Okay, I'll do try my best. Dear Ajahn Brahm, during meditation, is the bright light appeared at the top of the eyes called nimitta? It could be, even with closed eyes, is shining for a minute or and then disappeared. When that shines for a bit longer and then you can get to know it. And again, one of the things which it really is a nimitta is when the light is different than any other color you've seen in the real world. More blue than blue, more yellow than yellow, more white than white. So a special color, and also with a lot of joy and happiness as well. 2 questions on quality of sleep. Do you normally sleep continuously from start until you wake up? Are you talking about meditation? No. And of course, most people, when they go to sleep, they can wake up in the middle of the night or whatever and turn over. It really depends. If you are often, if you're in your own room and your own bed and it's nice and comfortable and nothing disturbs you, of course you can sleep continuously, but not everyone can do that. Related to question 1, is it possible to have a continuous sleep on a mat? And if so, what is the best sleeping posture to do so? Lying flat or sleep on either side? That's totally up to you, what you're used to. When I meditate, I usually lie on my back because I reserve that posture for meditation. And so my body, whenever I'm lying on my back, it sort of kind of knows that this is meditation posture. And if I want to go to sleep, I always go to sleep starting on my side. So because of that, when I started traveling a lot and you go on aircraft, it's usually expected to sleep on your back on a seat in the aircraft. And that was a big problem because it was like that was my meditation position, so I couldn't fall asleep at all. But you get used to that. But after a while, if you have one position where you normally fall asleep, then that's the body knows, that's sleep position. And other positions are not for sleep. I trained myself like that over many years. But whatever you need to do to get a comfortable position to fall asleep. But the other thing with learning how to go to sleep, that sometimes it was hard to go to sleep. And a lot of times I noticed that was because you didn't have much time and you had some appointments the next morning. You maybe have to get up early to go to the airport to fly to Malaysia. So the day before I left, or the day when I left to come to Malaysia, And he had to get up at 3 a.m. to be able to leave temple at 4 to get to the airport in time. But I'm so used to this now. I didn't even need to set the alarm clock. I just told myself when I went to bed, I have to get up at 3 o'clock. I got, I think, up about 10 to 3. I've tried this many times. It's programming your mind about what the time is you have to get up. It's amazing just how your body does what you ask it. So very clear, you're sleeping in your bed, not sleeping, you're laying down in your bed, tucked in, ready to fall asleep, and said, I must get up at 3 a.m. I must get up at 3 a.m. I must get up at 3 a.m. You say that to yourself very clearly, not too much, and then you go to sleep, and that's the time you wake up. It's quite fascinating just how you can program your mind on the time to wake up. But it's nice to be able to have a good sleep. If you can't go to sleep, I notice is because I wanted to go to sleep. That wanting made me too tight to be able to fall asleep. So I countered that by saying that my bed is the most comfortable place that I could ever be. My bed is in a cave, so no one can talk to me when I'm in that bed. It's comfortable, it's soft, it's not too hot, not too cold. And my pillow, I snuggle up to it. And when I'm snuggling up to the pillow and I'm comfortable, I realize this is one of the most comfortable postures I can ever be in my bed. So I tell myself, look, I don't want to go to sleep. I want to be awake and enjoy this very comfortable physical posture. When I do that, the next thing I know, I'm woken up in the morning. Because I don't want to go to sleep, it's easy to go to sleep. Whatever you want to do, you create too much tightness and tension of achieving that goal. Next question, wouldn't it be laziness if we are too relaxed? I don't think I've ever seen a person too relaxed. I've seen a person too tense. Just like there was this man who went to the psychiatrist. What's your problem, sir? And this man replied, well, sometimes I think I'm a marquee. And sometimes I think I'm a teepee. You know the teepee? Those cloth homes where the American Indians used to live. Sometimes I think I'm a marquee. Sometimes I think I'm a teepee. Psychiatrist said, I know your problem. You're too tense. Okay. This late at night, maybe I shouldn't tell such jokes. People in the world are far too active. So if you can be, you call it lazy, it's got a bad reputation being lazy. Be more free, more at ease. Have more time to talk to one another or to meditate, and always be going somewhere and doing something. I have a family of ADHDs. My daughter is 15, my son's 11, and my husband is 48. I would like to introduce meditation to them again. I tried several times, but they were too distracted. Kindly advise, please. First of all, it's nice to be able to have like these guided meditations available. So what you can do, especially for your husband, get one of these recordings of a guided meditation and tell your husband when you get home, you said, this is really important to me, so you keep your hands off it, don't touch it. It's not for you, it's for me. And then what usually happens with husbands in Malaysia, they'll say, what do you mean I can't touch it? And he might listen to it. Because that certainly happened with this one Malaysian girl had an Australian husband. She said, I know he would love meditation, but he thinks he's Australian. Australia's not into meditation. What can I do? And I said, so easy. Buy a copy of Opening the Door of Your Heart Take it home and tell your husband, this is mine, please keep your hands off it. That's all. And of course, I know Australian men. What happened was that when she was out shopping, what does she mean? I can't look at this book. And he just read it out of spite, from cover to cover. He liked it so much, he comes every week. So if it's family members, you have to be sneaky. So you tell your husband he's not allowed to meditate in the house. Why not? Your daughter is 15, son is 11. Your daughter is 15. I don't know, is she allowed to have a boyfriend yet? One thing to be able to do, if you can go to one of the BGF's youth group and get a really nice boy, hire him. And if he's really nice, you can say, well, I'll go out with you if you meditate together. I say that because this man was from Malacca, migrated over to Australia, and his son was, he had a nice girlfriend who was going out regularly, but he wasn't doing the studies for university. And the dad would tell the son, the mum would tell the son, look, you've got to do your assignments for university. The grades are going down, you're in trouble. He would never listen to his mum and dad. And so his dad was really smart. He was a lawyer in Malacca before he migrated to Australia. So he waited one evening, and when his son came back with his girlfriend late at night, he was waiting for them. He said, please come in, both of you. He was very polite. Son was scared because he knew his father. His girlfriend said, oh, we've got to be polite. Your father's been polite to us. And so when they got in the house, the father just was talking to his son's girlfriend. He said, you've been going out for a long time now. I don't know where your relationship is, but you're a very nice girl. I needed to share this information with you. My son, his grades are going down at university and they're getting so bad, he's in danger of getting kicked out from university. And I'm sure you don't want to go out with a stupid young man who doesn't even go to university. I just thought I needed to tell you that. So good night, I'm going to bed now. It was a brilliant exercise this father did, because from that day on, the girlfriend would always ask him, have you done your assignments yet? What was the grade? Did you do it well enough? And that poor boy didn't have a hope. He had to do all those assignments. What happened there was the father knew his son's weak point, his girlfriend. And once he had the girlfriend on side, the son didn't have a chance. He had full leverage on him. And he actually finished his university and did well, thanks to the girlfriend. So, you're 15-year-old. Now, don't get a girlfriend for your husband. That's very dangerous. But, for the other two, see if you can encourage them, to do a little bit of meditation. I don't think you would mind me saying this, Victor's brother, he always said he used to go to the Buddhist groups when he was young because the pretty girls were there. Is that bad? Remember the story of the Buddha's cousin? And that's where the Buddha was invited to do a blessing for his cousin who was getting married. And then because the Buddha was cousin and elder, the Buddha, after going to do the blessing and getting some alms food, he told the cousin Nanda, he has to take the Buddha's bowl back to the monastery. And once the Buddha got Nanda into the monastery, he convinced him to ordain as a monk, but just temporarily. And then the Buddha said, I want to show you something. And then the Buddha took Nanda up to this heaven realm. And in this heaven realm, he said, look at all these beautiful women up in the heaven realm. Which is more beautiful? You know, that your wife-to-be who's waiting for you, or these beautiful women up in heaven? And Nanda said, oh, there's no comparison. Just the women up in heaven are just so amazing. Well, said the Buddha, if you stay as a monk, you'll be able to have some of these women afterwards. And apparently that's what happened. So I said, oh, okay. So Nanda decided to stay as a monk. And he got known by the other monks, are you just being a monk to get a beautiful wife in heaven after you pass away? And they teased him. But it didn't really matter that much, because once Nanda was in the monastery and doing some meditation, he soon saw the Buddha's trick, and he got some very deep meditation, became enlightened himself, so never needed to go and marry some heavenly nymph anymore. It's a very good trick. He became a monk for one reason, but once he was a monk, he did much better. Anyway, why does my body shake when I meditate? I think it could be you're getting recollections of your past life as a rocker. Can we call this meditation retreat as Vipassana? You can call it whatever you want. It's not Vipassana. It's the whole big deal. Samatha, Vipassana, Metta, the whole lot. But you can call it whatever you want. The 4 levels of sainthood. Sotapanna to Arahat. Does it have to be sequential? We can't be an Arahat first and then become a stream winner. That doesn't make sense. But you can just jump and just, immediately just become an Arahat without going through the earlier stages. But what was that tale which a Sri Lankan man told me about a family in Colombo? They had like a grandma, auntie who lived up in the hillsides of Sri Lanka, and she came to visit them, and they didn't know what to do with her, so they suggested there is an organization here in Colombo which runs these meditation and Dhamma retreats about a long time, not just 9 days, but about 2 months. And you do meditation, you learn the Dhamma, and at the end of the retreat, the people there, they assess you and see how well you've done. And so, do you want to do that, Grandma? She said, yes, I'll do that. So she went there, and after the 2 months, the people running this retreat were so impressed with her progress. They came to see her and said, we've all agreed you've done so well that we've decided your meditation, your understanding of the Dhamma is so deep, we've all decided that you are a stream winner. And they gave her this certificate, stream winning certificate. And as soon as they gave the stream winning certificate to her, she got really angry. They said, Auntie, why are you angry? It's a wonderful thing to be a stream winner. The first stage of enlightenment, you're bound for enlightenment. You won't go to any of the lower realms anymore. And then she looked at them with anger and said, you don't remember me, do you? I said, no. I said, I came here a couple of years ago and you gave me a non-returner certificate. You've demoted me. Apparently that was a true story, and the place closed down soon after. Next question, how do you settle the monkey mind? Very tough to get rid of it. You really know what the monkey mind is? It's not the restless mind. The story of the monkey mind. Again, one of those classic stories. It's in one of those books. On Wesak in Colombo, Sri Lanka, a monkey was hanging around the temple because, on these big ceremonies, there's always people leave a plate or something somewhere unattended, or they drop a fruit like a mango or something. There's always very easy pickings for monkeys at these big Buddhist events in Sri Lanka. So while he was waiting for people to bring the food, he was hearing one of the monks give the sermon. And the monk was actually talking about meditation and mentioning the monkey mind. And that really interested this monkey. They're talking about us. But when he heard what this Buddhist monk described as a monkey mind, and it was a bad mind, a mind which was restless, was thinking of all sorts of things, was never still, was never peaceful, the monkey got very upset. How can these Buddhists say such bad things about us? They don't know what a monkey mind is. They're not monkeys. I know what a monkey mind is. It's not that bad. This is defamation. I'm going to complain to the World Wildlife Fund. I'm going to get David Attenborough to actually to represent us. He can't say bad things about people without, or even monkeys, without knowing what you're talking about. This is wrong. This is not right. This is unfair. Downplaying monkey minds. So the monkey swam back into the forest where his friends were, and he said, "You wouldn't believe what these monks say about us." And once the monkeys heard about that, they were too upset as well. We can't stand for this. We've got to do something about this. And they were jumping up and down to say, "You can't say bad things about monkeys. The monkey minds are okay. They're good." And they were jumping up and down, making a lot of noise. And the senior monkey, the head of this little tribe, said, "You see, that is the monkey mind. Jumping up and down, not being able to stay still, and just messing around." And all the monkeys said, "Actually, you're right. Having a monkey mind is not a good thing. What can we do?" And then the head monkey said, "I've heard over many years that if you meditate, you can overcome the monkey mind." So the monkey said, "Yeah, let's meditate. We want to meditate. Let's meditate. Come on, let's meditate. We'll all meditate." And once they finished jumping up and down for a few minutes, "How do we meditate?" And the head monkey said, "Well, you've got to get a cushion. So go into the forest and get some leaves and a bit of grass and make it into a nice, round, comfortable cushion. Then you sit on it. And once you sit on it, put your right leg over your left leg, your right paw over your left paw, back straight, head down, and watch your breath. Breathing in, breathing out." That was the instructions the head monkey gave to everybody else. So that's what they did. They got a little meditation cushion, they sat on it, right paw over the left paw, back straight, head down, started meditating. And that apparently was the first time in the history of Sri Lanka that monkeys meditated for 2 minutes. Then one of the monkeys put their hand up, "Excuse me, don't you remember that we planned to go and raid the banana plantation for lunch?" And the other monkey said, "Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Let's go and raid the banana plantation. We won't eat the monkeys yet because it's not lunchtime. We'll just get as many bananas as we can, and then we can actually meditate. Then we don't have to think about anything." So they all got off their meditation cushions. They swung to the the banana plantation, stole as many bananas as they could. They didn't eat them yet, and they put them in the middle of the plantation of their little clearing where they lived. They went back to their seats. Right leg over the left leg, right paw over the left paw, back straight, heads down, watching their breath. Breathing in. "Excuse me," said another monkey, "I've just been thinking, before we eat those bananas, we have to peel them first. So I've been thinking about that. It's been bothering me. So let's peel them first. We won't eat them. It's not lunchtime yet. We'll peel them. And once we peeled them, then I won't be disturbed. I can sit down and meditate peacefully. So they all agreed with him. They all got off their cushions. They peeled all those bananas. Then they went back to their cushions. Right leg over the left leg, right paw over the left paw, back straight, heads down. Breathing in, breathing out. Excuse me. said one of the monkeys. I've been thinking, before we eat those bananas already peeled, before we eat them, we have to put them in our mouth first. Let's get that out of the way so I don't need to think about it. And all the other monkeys agreed, yes, let's put bananas in our mouth. So they all did that. They all put a banana in their mouth. You know what monkeys are like? There's always 2 monkeys or 3 monkeys put 2 bananas in. One monkey put 3 bananas in his mouth. But then they all went back to their cushions, sat down, right leg over the left leg, right paw over the left paw, back straight, heads down, closing the eyes and breathing in, breathing out. And surprisingly, while no one was looking, all those bananas disappeared down their throats. And that was the end of monkeys meditating in Sri Lanka. Now that is a monkey mind. Do you recognize it? Let's get this out of the way and then you can meditate. All the things which you have to do. It's only a small thing, I'll just get out of the way, then I can meditate. Ajahn, if I choose to stay in a relationship which my partner cheat on me, main reason is for our child and big family happiness, how can I really, really open up the door of my heart to every condition? Sometimes I feel very upset and sad. One of the things I do is reading your books, Open Up to Kindness to Survive this year. It really saved me. Thank you so much, Ajahn. Again, sometimes life is not easy. We make sacrifices. If that's for your child, even though your partner cheats on you, look, if he's only cheated on you once, can you actually talk to him about it? See if you can somehow reconcile. But if there's no way of reconciling, at least you're in that relationship for the sake of your child, which is a wonderful sacrifice to do. I've seen people do that. They have no partnership with their husband, but they're an excellent mother to their child. And I think you will benefit from that later on in your life, the sacrifice you made for another, even though someone was cheating on you. It's an amazing thing you do. I say that because I remember seeing one lady do that. Her husband was the owner of a Thai restaurant. He had a mistress. The wife knew, children knew, but she stayed on as the formal wife for the sake of the children. It's a difficult decision. Sometimes in life, it's not easy. You try your best to see what you can do. But please also, guys, don't ever do that. That's one of the precepts which you're breaking, the 3rd precept. And it really hurts another person. Number 2, don't ever think that your wife will never find out. I often quote that war hero in the United States, General Petraeus. He was the head of the CIA. He was having an affair with the person who was writing his biography. Even the head of the CIA couldn't keep his affair secret. So you guys have got no chance. Is that the sort of person you'd like to be? Somebody who cheats on his wife? who's not a really good example to their children. When you say it like that, when you know you're going to get busted, you might say, it's going to be all found out. Is that really what you want to be? So please contemplate that. It's just asking for more suffering. At what point of time a monk becomes Ajahn? How do we distinguish? How do we address a monk who has not become a teacher? Usually in our tradition, instead of actually giving the monk an exam to see if he knows what he's talking about, we always say once a monk has got 10 reigns, they've been a monk for 10 years, then they can call themselves Ajahn. But whether they're worth inviting to teach a retreat at the BGF, that doesn't mean because they've got 10 reigns, they're all good teachers. You got to invite them, check them out, and see if they're useful for you. That's one of the reasons why a person who is going to teach at the BGF, you have to go and check them out, first of all. They may be extremely senior and they're hopeless. They may be very junior and they're great teachers. So that's why the word Ajahn does not really describe the person, just that they've got 10 reigns or more. That makes sense? So the other monks here, they're not teachers, so you call them, what do you call them? Slaves. Slaves of the Dharma. It's much nicer, honestly, instead of being a very, very senior monk, I often say to you in the interviews, how can I serve you? Because sometimes the more range you get as a monk, sometimes the more high you become as a monk. Sometimes people think there's always something special there, and they get nervous when they talk to you. I don't know why on earth anyone would get nervous when they talk to me. I always think I'm a very soft, kind monk. But to prove it sometimes, that especially at conferences, I love going to conferences because there you can sit in the back and listen to somebody else give talks. When I come to the BGF, I never get a chance to sit in the back. But I remember doing that at this conference in Hanoi, in Vietnam, some years ago. And I was sitting in the back, just minding my own business, and this Vietnamese monk came and sat next to me. And when he sat next to me, he wanted to practice his English, his conversation skills. So he asked me, oh, where are you from? And I said, I am from Australia. Oh, he said, Australia, very nice place. Do you know a famous monk in Australia called Ajahn Brahm? Honestly, this is what happened. And I said, yes, I know him very well. Oh, what's he like? It's me. And I remember his response, ah! I shocked him. I shouldn't have done that. But what's the difference between a senior monk and a junior monk? No, honestly, we do try not to encourage so much seniority. In other words, when I'm with the monks here, we're having breakfast. We want to share things. Yeah, you make sure that I get enough food, but I want to make sure you get enough food as well. Because it's like my brothers in the Dhamma. Yes, I may be the most senior in ranks, but you still respect one another as brothers. And the seniority is not that senior that I can abuse my authority in any way. Thank you so much for your guided meditation. I'm very happy first time when I don't feel like leaving the meditation cushion. Why? Because of happiness. I don't feel tired nor sleepy, ha ha ha. Fresh and alert. Have you heard about anicca? It won't last. You might not feel tired and sleepy when you wrote this, but that was yesterday's questions. I'm pretty sure you went to bed last night. But it's good. Sometimes when you're inspired and happy, you don't feel tired. That's why sometimes, I remember as a young man, you go to concerts or have these interesting conversations with your friends, and sometimes you'd be up late into the night. You never felt tired because your mind was being stimulated with like either really interesting conversations or sometimes going to these all-night concerts, great music. And I remember some of those which I went to, even as a kid, you never felt tired because it was an interesting thing to do. Anything which you really enjoy, it's hard to feel tired. Ajahn, when I meditate, after a few hours, sometimes the center of the solar plexus starts vibrating. Does that mean anything? No. What should I do with that? Nothing. Thank you for your kindness. It's a boring answer, isn't it? So if the center of the solar plexus starts vibrating, just again relax it, be peaceful. Obviously getting some energy up there, but the energy is probably in the wrong place. It's just like when people ask me questions about weird, strong energy in the body, especially they start looking at things like Kundalini in that sort of process, which is more part of the Hindu tradition than the Buddhist tradition. And my advice is that yes, you are starting to generate some really good energy from your meditation, but that energy is going into the wrong place. It should be going into the mind, not into the body. So part of our practice here, I may not have stressed it enough, is to let go of the body. So the five senses where the five senses which play around in the body disappear. So you're sitting there and you can't feel the solar plexus, you can't feel the head, you can't feel the hands. The body is pretty much vanished. You can't hear sounds, you can't smell. All those five senses are being subdued until they're really, really peaceful. And then when energy comes up, it goes into the mind where it really belongs, and it's much better there than anywhere in your body. So if your solar plexus feels vibrating, please see if you can take your attention away from your body and allow that energy to go into the mind. It's much more joyful and much more beneficial. The jhana states, yeah, relaxing to the max, but it's not lazy, it's powerful states of mind. They're great to be able to experience. Now, having got to 9:25, we can start today's questions. I'll do one question anyway and see what it is. My body was so heaty or heavy during this past few days, couldn't really sit. Then starting today, after your advice this morning to give attention and care to whatever comes up, I started to sit better. Yay. I think I'll leave there, the last question. Should I? I'll do the rest of the question. Okay, I'll do the rest of the question. My question is, can I change posture if I experience numbness in my legs without coming out from the sitting and then get back to the cross-legged sitting and continue with the sitting? Yes. It's okay if you're, when you're meditating, your legs get sore or you get a bit tired or something is beginning to hurt somewhere else. Yes, you can change your posture, but change your posture slowly, mindfully. And then when you close your eyes and start meditating again, you find you've gone backwards, but not that far backwards. You soon make up what you've lost, but now you can go much further, much deeper. So quite often it is a good idea to change your posture in the middle of a long meditation, because then you find you can eventually go much deeper. Otherwise, if you stay really still and you start to experience aches and pains, then what happens, we'll have to call the ambulance. And the poor old organizers of the BGF will be sued. Can you afford that? No. Dear Ajahn, who is this person who is watching the mind and thoughts or disturbing the mind's peace? It's just a process of stupidity. Do you accept that? This is a process which watches and disturbs. It's not a person. Are there two entities within us? My goodness, no. Having one entity is enough problem. Having two, whoa. When past lives are recalled, we are these events recorded to our 5 sense organs, like walking cameras, and uploaded to somewhere. No, they're not recorded anywhere. There's some camera in the sky recording all our deeds, speech, and thoughts. No. This is when you recall a past memory, like even early life memories or past life memories. There's no way that could be recorded anywhere and you have access to it. Genetically, you're totally different. The time is just too far away. All you're doing is being able to access these things. I always call it like resonance, like radios can access just the signal from a long way away. And actually you are back there again, which is the weird thing. It's like you're reliving these experiences. So I don't know if I told you this. One of the gentlemen, he was an Italian Buddhist at my retreat in Perth. And when he was meditating, he recalled some very weird experiences. He came to tell me about them. He said one day when he was meditating, he was sure that he was a strand of spaghetti. The next time he came out during interviews and he said, I didn't imagine I was a strand of spaghetti. I was a piece of macaroni. And then I understood it straight away. I've been very experienced in meditation states. And I said, sir, you've been recollecting, because you're Italian, you've been recollecting your past lives. Okay. So I think that's enough for today. So that's not stored anywhere. That's just how you can access those things from the past without it being stored in any one place. So thank you for listening. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Excellent. So great. So we can now all go home to our beds or whatever you want to do, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. And if you do, whenever you do leave this place to go home, please don't walk through the cemetery later. Otherwise, the coffin ghost might get you.